Anyone who wants to participate, has at least the means to participate, is a huge change.
Now, in today's universe, everybody has the British Library in their mobile phone, on their laptop, and it's just wonderful, wonderful data.
They're wrong. They're believing in something that doesn't really exist.
Privacy really matters, and the great worry that we have in the digital age is that we've already given so much of it up.
When you look at the fact that you can be sitting in your pajamas on your couch and help drive, world peace, that is actually happening today. That's possible in a way that it was never possible before.
I'm in the position of teaching my own youth as ancient history, right? I have to get my students to understand what the media landscape used to be like. And I tell them all kinds of stories about what it was like. And they nod politely, and I think they believe me when I tell them these things, but I can tell they don't feel it. And the thing they really don't feel is when I say to them, in the 20th century, if you had something to say in public, you couldn't, period. Right? If you were a civilian, if you were a citizen but not a media professional, you could not broadcast a message, no matter how hard you tried. In fact, people who went out of their way to try to get messages out in public through amateur channels, right, holding up signs on the street or by the roadside, were widely regarded as being kind of off their rockers. And that change is enormous. That anyone who wants to participate, has at least the means to participate, is a huge change.
The internet, through its connectedness, the fact that we connect so easily with one another, is a different type of instrument for thinking. We've had many types of instruments for thinking, everything from scratching in the sand to books to computers. All of these things are tools for us to think and to do it out in the world. The internet is a new one of these, and it has particular strengths as well as some weaknesses. And the strength is that it lets us do this thing that we've always done to one degree or another, but now do it on a much larger scale, which is to think together, which is what conversation is usually about. Well, now we can do it with a much broader range of people across a much more diverse territory and a much larger geography.
We all have information needs. Those needs might arise from health, it might arise from wanting to find a good school, it might even arise from wanting to find the cheapest product somewhere. Everything triggers off a sort of information need. And to meet your need, you've got to seek information, hence information seeking. Now, in the old days, it wasn't so easy to do that. You could talk to your mother, you could maybe go to the local library, and if you were lucky enough to live next door to the British Library, you were really lucky because they had lots and lots of information and lots of opportunities for information seeking. Now, in today's universe, everybody has the British Library on their doorstep, in their mobile phone, on their laptop, in their office, and suddenly we have unbelievable resources close to hand, and we can seek information in any particular way we like with so many possibilities. In fact, information seeking it's a siren behavior. We're attracted by seeking information, finding things, and all of those things. So today, information seeking is central to everything in our lives, and unless we can information seek well, we're in real trouble.
As the web is so much bigger than just business, making money, and governing, it is really culture at large. It's a new form of culture, and the culture will range from playfulness and inefficiency and just playing around to the most serious accomplishments and achievements of humanity. So it has the full range, and I think we should embrace that, the fact that it can be trivial, that the web can be a waste of time, that it can be nonsense, and at the same time, it's probably the greatest thing that we've ever done.
One of our Ning networks is the Congo Wall, which was created by Eve Ensler, who had just gotten back from the Congo with her V-Day organization, where women are being brutalized as a means of fighting a war. And the fact of the matter is they feel alone. And with social technology, women from all over the world could come to this this Ning network and leave a message for the women of the Congo. You're not alone. And those messages, over 2,000 women and men around the world actually contributed a message. They printed them out and took them to the hospital in the Congo where women were recovering. No one is alone anymore. And I actually think that's a really powerful thing. You can sit at your house and make change. And we're talking about social change and political change and economic change in a way that was never possible before. And I think that that's something that we should embrace, and that we should look at what are the ways that we're going to make it the best of what people can be, as opposed to the worst of what people can be.
Well, it's a funny thing, which is the experience of connecting with other people in Second Life, in the virtual world. It is experiential in a certain sense, so that it becomes difficult to describe it except by appeal to having had a similar kind of experience. So if you've ever felt really connected, you've come to some place, I'm not talking about computers, technology, or networks, and you found some people, and you go, I like it here. I feel like I belong. This is new. This is interesting. I can be who I really am here, and I can't in other places. I want more of this. I want to invest in this. I want to become known here. I want to contribute to it. This feels good. It's that kind of experience that is sort of missing in people's lives. So when they find that in a place like Second Life, they get hooked.
What would I say to the people who are sitting in front of their computers, believing in revolution? I think I would say the same thing as those people in the 16th and 17th and 18th century who went to church and who believed in universal redemption or realization in heaven. I believe that they are subjects or victims of false consciousness, that they're wrong, that they're believing in something that doesn't really exist, and they're dupes or they're exploited, particularly those of them who stupidly give away their labor for free so that young men in Silicon Valley can become infinitely rich.
Every single time we go online, every time we look at a website, every time we send an email message, every time we make a phone call with our mobile telephones, we're exposing ourselves, we're stripping ourselves naked to the view of anybody who is interested to find out what we're doing. We know already that private agencies are keen to look at the pattern of use of the internet that we indulge in so that they can target advertising at us. And governments in the Western world, indeed in the world at large, are anxious to keep a record of who people are talking to, what kind of information they're finding out, so that they can detect patterns of, that suggest crime or terrorism in the offing. And in all these ways, therefore, we expose ourselves to view through the use of these devices. Not that we would want to give up using these devices, they're just so useful to us, but they do expose us to scrutiny.
Well, one way in which you'll give up personal information is obviously by clicking on one thing or another that reveals the sorts of things you're interested in. But how would they get from that to actually figuring out, for instance, who you are? Well, it's well known in the privacy world that things like your birth date, your gender, and your postal code or zip code will allow people to figure out who you actually are, what your true name is. Now, how might a website get that information from you? Well, let's say you want to sign up for a horoscope. Then you're going to give them your birth date and probably tell them whether or not you're a man or a woman. Then maybe you want to find out what your local weather is. Probably the easiest way to do that is to put in your postal code or zip code. And bingo, they've got 3 pieces of information that are going to make it really easy for them to figure out exactly who you are.
So when you go on Amazon and you click, and as you click through from product to product to product, you start to see the recommendations appear, either based on your past history or more typically your session. You know, as you start looking for cameras, you start to see people who clicked, who looked at this also looked at that. People who bought this, people who clicked at this bought that. You know, in the course of your clicking, the service becomes more useful to you. the implicit, and for many people the explicit trade-off is that in exchange for watching over your shoulder as you shop, we will help you shop better. And no one seems to have any problem with this because this is they trust Amazon, and this is if you go into a store and the store assistant says, "Can I help you?" And if the store assistant is good and you're feeling like you need help, you'll go through this little communication. Here's what I'm looking for. What do you think of that? What do you think of that? No, a little more of this. The advice will get better and better and better, and eventually you will get what you want. Amazon does this exact same thing. So there's nothing new about this trade-off. In the same way that you don't, that in the store, as the assistant helps you shop, you're choosing to give up information about your preferences for the sake of a better experience. You do so as well in Amazon. If you don't want to give up personal information, you just don't have to log in to Amazon. You can do it anonymously. Google works the same way. You type in your search term, Caribbean holiday, and Google will give you a useful set of results, and they will also give you some ads on the side. And as your term gets more and more specific, maybe a date range, a price range, and things like that, the ads will get more and more specific and more relevant. Presumably at a certain point, not only are the search terms what you're looking for, but the ads are what you're looking for as well. And so you now have two sets of results to choose from. Now if the one on the right side, the ads, is actually even better than the one in the middle column, you will choose that one and you will click there, but it's your choice. And so, Google knows what you're interested in right now. Do they know who you are? Do they have a profile of you? Not in any real sense, but they're watching as you click. But because we trust Google to watch for the right reason, which is to give us better results, we're okay with this.
I think the price we pay for having easy access to so much information, easy, quick access to so much information is we sacrifice some of the depth of our engagement with that information. So the kind of jumping, hopping from bit to bit to bit, clicking on links takes the place of what used to be a more contemplative, I think, approach to thinking about one thing, whether it's one piece of information or the argument or the narrative of a book. It becomes much harder, I think, when you're bombarded by information and other stimuli, as you are all the time on the web, to sit down and really focus on one particular thing.
This is no longer a generation that lives deliberately, that lives its life, that lives in the moment. I think that has time for reflection. We ask ourselves questions. If the velocity and volume is such that I send you a tweet or I send you a text, you have to answer me back. You can't. Nobody answers a text by saying, I have to think about that for 2 weeks. The communication demands a response. Well, that means that we start to ask each other questions that are easy to answer. And so I think we live in a kind of paradoxical time, and we're giving our teenagers a paradox, or the whole generation, not just our teenagers, but our babies growing up, a very paradoxical message. The world is more and more and more and more complex. On the other hand, we're only going to ask you a question that you can answer in 2 seconds. So we leave ourselves less and less time for reflection because our communications media push us to quick responses. And quite frankly, the questions before our planet right now are not questions that should be answered or thought about in the time space of texting.
There are now people in their mid to getting on to advanced teens who have never known, obviously, a world without the web. In fact, there may be 20-year-olds who've never known anything about that. Have they developed strange thumbs? Do they have peculiar ways of talking and listening? Do their eyes glaze over when they have to concentrate for more than 30 seconds? No, I don't believe any of that. But if you were to go back into the 1920s and take an ordinary, semi-educated 15-year-old and place him next to an ordinary, semi-educated 15-year-old now, you would find the one now knows more, understands more, is more socially confident, is more aware of the rest of the world, is more able and more adept at research, may not be able to say their 9 times table as fluently or repeat a moa massa matamama samatis amant. They may not be able to do that. Is that such a great loss?
Regardless of whether you think, social technology and the internet is good or bad, it is. This is what, the genie is out of the bottle. And I think that's an amazing thing. The social web can do more good in the world than it can do bad. And it's the choice of people and the people who are using it as to what they want to do with it. It is the most empowering generational shift that has ever happened. And I think that is what makes it so compelling and so inspiring and so much fun.